The Galactic Council ruled thousands of star systems. For ages, they believed no one could ever challenge their power. They brought laws to every new world they found. Peace, they said. But that peace came with chains. Every species that joined, the Council gave up their voice, their freedom, and sometimes, their future. Then, humans came, a small world. Far out on the edge of the galaxy, blue oceans, green forests, and machines that burned with light. The Council thought Earth would be easy to control. After all, it was just one planet, not an empire, no allies, no fleets in deep space, no seat at the table, just noise, emotion, and pride. But what the Council didn't understand, what they always failed to understand, was that humans were different. They didn't conquer to rule. They didn't ask for permission, they just explored, and they survived. Every time at first the Council sent a peaceful message to Earth, they called it a welcome, but it was really a warning. Obey us, follow our laws, join or be forgotten. The words were soft, but the meaning was sharp. Earth didn't answer, not a single word. The Council waited for 7 days. Then they sent a second message. This time, the words were louder. Do not ignore us. Surrender your weapons. Share your knowledge. Let us watch you. Let us guide you. Again, Earth said nothing. Just silence. To the Council. This was strange. No species had ever ignored them before. Not like this. Silence was not seen as peace. It was seen as defiance. Some members of the Council believed Earth was simply afraid. Others believed humans were arrogant. But a few of those who had studied human history felt something colder. They are not silent because they are weak, one elder said. They are silent because they are thinking. Still, the Council would not wait any longer. They voted. The answer was clear. Send a fleet to Earth's edge, not to attack, just to observe, to pressure, to make the humans speak. And so, a fleet of 30 ships entered Terran space. They hovered beyond the moon. They made themselves visible. They sent one final message. The message was not received. The humans had blocked all communications. Now, the fleet sat in silence. The ships began to scan Earth's skies. Its orbit, its defense systems, all looked normal. No movement, no reaction. The first scout ship disappeared. No warning, no noise. It vanished off the Council's sensors as if it had never existed. The officers aboard the fleet thought it was an error, until the second ship vanished the same way. Then the third. Panic began to whisper through the command decks. Pilots grew tense. The Council's admirals sent urgent reports, but they received no answers from Earth. No messages from the missing ships, and worst of all, no signs of battle. No debris. No explosions, just ... silence. It was worse than war. One Council captain finally spoke what others were afraid to say. They knew we were coming. Another answered, they let us come this far, and now they are watching. The Council's fleet pulled back slightly, but it was too late. The humans had already seen enough. Somewhere, deep in Earth's orbit, hidden beneath shadow fields and coded silence, Terran ships waited. Not massive fleets, not grand vessels, just a few. But unlike the Council's ships, these were built for something else. They were not built to show power. They were built to end threats. Back on Earth, no human leader spoke on public channels. No message was sent to the Council. But among Terran command, one sentence was passed from screen to screen. They threatened our future. Now, we answer without words. And so Earth remained silent. But that silence was about to become very, very loud. Asterisk, the Council's fleet remained near Earth's orbit, silent and uneasy. Ships designed for control and intimidation now felt small and exposed. Inside their command centers, officers whispered theories. Some believed Earth had developed stealth tech. Others blamed sensor glitches or black holes. But deep down, every officer felt something wasn't right. Something was watching them. Yet Earth still said nothing. Every attempt to communicate was ignored. Every scan revealed nothing new. No energy spikes, no movement from the surface. Earth's skies looked empty. Too empty. That's when the Council decided to test them. They launched a harmless probe, no weapons, just sensors aimed at Earth's atmosphere. It was meant to collect data, nothing more. But halfway through its descent, it stopped. Frozen. Mid-space. No explosion, no signal. It simply froze, as if time had paused. The Council technicians stared at their screens. Then the probe began to move again, but not toward Earth. It turned around, returned to the fleet, slowly, quietly, and when it arrived, it was empty, not destroyed, not damaged. But everything inside it, data, software, systems had been removed, not wiped. Replaced, in its place, was a single message, glowing on the screen in plain symbols: watch less, understand more. No name, no warning, just that. The Council's command ship went silent. Every officer stared at those words. Simple, unthreatening, but powerful. A meeting was called. All high-ranking leaders of the fleet gathered to discuss what to do next. Some wanted to retreat, others wanted to wait. But one admiral, old and proud, said firmly, "They're just trying to scare us. They have no allies, no great ships. We should not fear shadows." Another admiral leaned forward. "And yet, we're surrounded by shadows. We can't even find their ships." A younger officer finally spoke, hesitant but clear. They're not hiding. They're watching what we'll do next. The Council fleet decided to remain still. No more probes, no more scans. They wanted to observe Earth quietly, to show patience. But Earth had already made its move. Somewhere beyond the moon, unknown objects began to appear, not on normal sensors, but on gravitational maps. Space itself seemed heavier, like invisible mass was pressing down Council. Engineers said it was a glitch. But then, something passed directly through the fleet's edge. Nothing was seen. No heat, no metal. Just a ripple in space, like air moving across still water. It passed through one of the outer ships. The crew on board felt nothing. But hours later, the ship stopped responding. When a boarding team arrived, the ship was dark. Power was off. Systems down. Crew alive, but asleep. Every single one. Not hurt, not afraid, just, asleep. As if time had been paused inside. The Council's top minds were confused. This wasn't war. It wasn't attack. It was a message. A quiet one. And it worked. Now the Council began to argue. Some demanded they leave. Others believed Earth was bluffing. But every moment that passed made their fleet feel smaller. The galaxy had seen Earth as a young, loud world. Full of emotion. Full of pride. But now Earth was quiet. Calculated. Patient. And the silence was no longer empty. It had weight. It had meaning. In one quiet meeting aboard the Council's flagship, a respected elder finally said what no one else dared. Maybe they are not answering, because we asked the wrong questions. At that moment, far from Earth, in the black space between stars, other Terran ships were moving, not with weapons raised, not making noise, just shifting into position. Not to attack, but to let the galaxy know Earth had heard the threats, and their answer had already begun. Asterisk above Earth, the Council's fleet no longer felt like an authority. It felt like an intruder that had wandered too deep into the quiet of something ancient and unknown. Every hour brought more tension. No attacks. No speeches. Just that same silence from Earth. And strange, unexplainable events. The fleet's communication logs began. Two show gaps, missing seconds, scrambled words, audio distortion with no source. Security officers ran full diagnostics but found nothing. The systems weren't being hacked. It was as if reality near Earth was bending. Just slightly, but only around Council ships. The crew of the main vessel was ordered to remain calm. But calmness is difficult when you don't understand what you're facing. And still, Earth remained completely quiet. Council leaders sent private reports to their homeworlds. Some described the humans as unpredictable and deceptively advanced. Others simply wrote, "We are being studied." Inside one of the Council's command rooms, a scientist named Elin was reviewing long-range scans. She noticed something strange. It wasn't a ship, or a weapon, or a signal. It was absence. A patch of space, large and wide, that reflected nothing. No light, no mass, no radiation. She called it a quiet zone. There should have been stars in that region, or dust, or gravitational signatures. But there was nothing. Just a perfect, unnatural emptiness. When she zoomed in with the highest resolution scanner, she saw faint symbols, circular shapes, like a language. But shifting too quickly to read, she reported it. The Council dismissed it. They said it was a glitch, a sensor malfunction caused by Earth's magnetic field. But that night, Elin received a direct message on her personal datapad. No source, no encryption, just text. "We're not hiding from you. We're hiding what you don't understand." She didn't speak of it. Not to her commanders, not to her fellow scientists, because in her heart, she believed it wasn't a threat, it was a truth. And the more she watched Earth, the more she saw the signs. Storms moving unnaturally, clouds shifting in perfect geometric patterns, the oceans showing no tide changes, even with the fleet above. It was like Earth itself was aware, and someone, was controlling how much the Council could see. A few decks below, Council soldiers trained as usual, but even they felt the change. They spoke in whispers. They no longer stood tall in the corridors. Some started sleeping in shifts, even when off duty, not from fear, from pressure. It was the kind of weight you feel when someone is standing behind you, even if you're alone. And then came the anomaly. 3. Council ships that had remained farther back for safety, suddenly powered down completely, as if energy itself had been drained from their cores. Backup systems failed, lights went black. No explosions, no sound. When emergency teams arrived, they found the crews wide awake and smiling. Not in fear, not in confusion. In peace, they spoke quietly, each one repeating the same thing. "We don't need to return. We've seen enough." They refused to explain further. The Council declared it a medical event, some kind of mental interference. But deep inside their own logs, their internal notes changed. No longer did they describe Earth as isolated. Now, they called it a center. The center of what? They didn't say. But every day the fleet remained. Things became more uncertain. Stars blinked at wrong times. Navigation systems reported impossible locations. A Council captain thought he saw a moon where no moon should exist, just for a moment, then it vanished. Even time felt different. Meetings that felt like hours turned out to be minutes. Daily logs began to mismatch. One admiral stared at his reflection and saw it blink when he didn't. The crew grew quiet. They were learning something none of their technology could explain. Earth was not showing strength. It was showing restraint, not warning them, teaching them. And still, not a single Terran voice had spoken. Not a single human ship had broadcast a word. Yet everyone in the fleet knew they were no longer the Watchers. They were being allowed to stay. For now, one of the Council's most advanced ships, the Thaler's Grace, had been designed to withstand war, deep space anomalies, and extreme gravitational zones. But nothing in its long service prepared it for what Earth's orbit had become, not in battle, but in mystery. The crew, once proud and confident, now moved quietly through the halls. Routine tasks took longer. Conversations became short. Some refused to look out the windows, as if space itself had begun watching them back. They were not alone in this feeling. Across the entire fleet, the same unease settled like a shadow no one could name. Ships that once represented dominance now felt like guests overstaying a silent invitation. And still, Earth gave no response, no demand, no sign of fear, just presence. In the Council's flagship, Admiral Sale was reviewing incident reports. There were now dozens of them, all different, yet sharing one thread: the unexplained. Ships drifting half a degree off course with no force acting on them, lights flickering in code-like patterns, dreams shared across crews, and always the silence. He stared at a report from the Virulin, a diplomatic ship parked farthest from Earth. Its crew had recorded hours of space audio using a quantum resonance scanner. At first it picked up nothing, then patterns, not voices, not music, rhythms, repeating tones, pulsing like heartbeats, far below normal frequencies, almost like sonar, but organic, alive. The signals had no source, but their timing matched the patterns in Earth's weather, the shift of tides, and even human satellite drift, as if someone or something was gently tuning everything around the planet with perfect control. When scientists were called to analyze the data, their response was unsettling. These patterns are not artificial, they're biological. Earth isn't reacting. Pause. It's aware. The Council didn't accept this at first. After all, they had explored hundreds of planets. None had behaved like this. Planets were not alive. They hosted life, but were not life. Yet everything the fleet experienced now suggested otherwise. As the Council debated next steps, something new occurred. The stars behind Earth began to shift. It was so subtle no one noticed at first, but long-range navigational maps confirmed it. Several background stars appeared, out of alignment, that it was impossible. Stars do not move, not at this speed, not in this way. Council navigators ran simulation after simulation, but the answer was always the same. The sky was changing, only when seen from Earth's orbit, a controlled illusion, or something greater. To confirm, they launched a small, unmanned vessel into deep space. It was meant to return to the same coordinates and confirm star alignment. When the ship returned, it broadcasted a message: "You measure stars with eyes that still sleep." That was all. Inside the data logs, the ship's internal clock showed a travel time of 42 hours, but only 7 had passed. Even time had become unreliable. The Council knew they could not explain this, and yet, they hesitated to leave. Why? Because leaving meant admitting they no longer held control, and something about Earth made them believe they were being invited to stay, but only for observation, not as rulers, not as judges, as students. Back aboard the Thaler's Grace, a young officer named Relin sat at the observation deck. She had once feared Earth would strike back, that humans would send fleets, respond with force, or fire unseen weapons. But they hadn't, she whispered to herself. They are not silent because they are weak. They are silent because they've already won. And that was the most unsettling truth of all. The humans never once reacted to pressure, because to them, this wasn't pressure, it was noise. And Earth had long since moved beyond the need to respond to noise. The Council had come to control, but instead, they had uncovered something older than their power, deeper than their understanding, and far more patient. They had expected resistance. Instead, they found presence. Now, the real question formed quietly, in every mind aboard the fleet: if Earth could change the sky, what else could it do that they hadn't yet seen? And more importantly, why hadn't it done it yet? A soft blue glow shimmered across Earth's atmosphere as the Council fleet floated in high orbit, its ships now quieter than ever. The control rooms weren't filled with command voices anymore, just the hum of systems running in the background, and the low whispers of crew members asking questions no one could answer. It had been over a cycle since the fleet arrived. Still, no reply from Earth. Still no ships from the surface. No transmissions. No leaders stepping forward. Only silence. And yet, that silence had become louder than war. Each passing day brought stranger readings. Time anomalies, energy that couldn't be measured, navigation tools losing calibration every few hours, even light near Earth bent at odd angles. Not enough to cause alarm, but enough to make stars shimmer wrong. To the Council's pride, This was unacceptable. To its oldest minds. It was humbling. Many within the fleet had started to record dreams, not simple ones, shared ones. Multiple crew members, across different ships, experiencing the same visions while asleep. Visions of endless oceans, vast forests with whispering winds, and voices that spoke not in words, but in feelings. Peace, patience, purpose, but always followed by one final message. You asked who leads, Earth, but you didn't ask what listens. Council scientists were told not to speak of these dreams. Reports were quietly deleted, but whispers spread. One soldier said he dreamed of standing on Earth's soil, yet the planet was completely empty. Another described floating over the surface where cities had vanished and the sky pulsed like a heartbeat. But the strangest report came from the counselor's desk. The fleet's deep censorship. Its readings detected movement beneath Earth's surface, not ships, not drills. Something else. Large shifts, like tectonic plates, but rhythmic, not random. Something deep underground, moving with purpose. When scans were enhanced, they revealed shapes, massive, circular, slow-moving formations buried beneath continents, and they weren't natural. When the data was shown to Admiral Sale, he simply said, "This is no longer a mission of diplomacy." Other leaders asked, "Then what is it?" He replied, "We are no longer visitors. We are being tested, measured, and we don't even know the scale." The council attempted one final act of control, a cultural signal, an old tradition. They broadcast a sequence of shared galactic knowledge. Images, tones, gestures from dozens of civilizations. A universal offer of understanding. They sent it on every frequency, across every spectrum. And finally, Earth answered, but not with words, not with a ship. Instead, every screen across the fleet flickered. Black dot, then white dot, then a single symbol. Appeared. A circle. Inside it, a spiral. It turned slowly. No one understood it, not at first. But to those who had dreamed, it was familiar. They had seen it in their sleep, carved into stone, drawn in the skies, rising from oceans. A universal shape, not of war, not of threat, of cycles. One of the council's xenolinguists, a quiet scholar named Heaver, finally spoke. It means, we've come too early. They are not hiding from us. They are waiting for us to be ready. Admirals debated again, but this time, there was no shouting, no anger, only reflection. The fleet had arrived with the belief they held knowledge, law, and order. They had come to offer protection. But what if Earth didn't need protection? What if it was the center of something older, not power, not weaponry, but awareness? A place that didn't speak, because it listened first. Now, many aboard the fleet looked at Earth differently, not as a planet, but as something alive. And the humans, perhaps just one part of something greater, like cells in a body that only responded when needed. And now, Earth was responding, not with ships, not with weapons, but with understanding far beyond the Council's reach. One final reading confirmed everything. From a moon-based sensor, a new message was received. It wasn't in code. It wasn't even sound, it was gravity. A slight pulse, sent from Earth's core, moving outward. Passing through the fleet, like a soft breath, it carried no pain. But everyone felt it like a calm hand placed on your shoulder, not to stop you, but to guide you. A reminder, you are here, you are seen, you are still learning. And then the pulse was gone. Everything returned to normal. Or at least, what felt normal, but nothing was truly normal anymore. Now the Council understood. They had not threatened Earth, they had only woken something that never slept. Asterisk, as the final light of Earth's sunrise touched the edge of the fleet, a quiet understanding had spread through every ship in orbit. What had started as a mission of control, then turned to confusion, had now become something else entirely, respect. The silence Earth had kept from the beginning now made perfect sense. It wasn't absence, it was awareness. It wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. And the Council, once the mighty voice of order in the stars, had finally begun to listen. A new calm settled over the fleet. Systems were stable. Sensors were quiet. No new anomalies, no missing ships, no strange dreams. But everyone knew something had changed, not outside, inside. Inside the minds of the Council's officers, soldiers, engineers, scientists, something new had grown. A realization they could not explain in official reports. Not easily, the Council had come expecting, to lead Earth into the galaxy. But perhaps, Earth had already been there. Quietly, patiently, just watching. Admiral Sale stood alone on the deck of the flagship, eyes fixed on the distant planet below. He wasn't thinking about power anymore, or laws, or victories. He was thinking about questions. What else was Earth hiding? Not as a weapon, but as knowledge. Why hadn't they defended themselves? Or more importantly, why hadn't they needed to? He turned to his communications officer and gave a quiet order. Open a wide frequency channel, all fleets, all ships, no encryption, and send nothing. The officer blinked. Nothing, sir? Sale nodded slowly. Yes, nothing. No words, just silence. If they are listening, they'll understand that we finally are too. The officer hesitated, then executed the command. Across the fleet, every ship sent the same thing: blank data, an open channel. A silent message that it was the first time the council had ever responded without trying to lead. And then, something answered. The stars around Earth shimmered. Slowly, carefully, like a curtain gently moving in a breeze no one could feel. The space behind them didn't change, but the feeling of it did. No words, no visuals, no contact, just stillness. But in that stillness, every officer, every crew member, every being aboard the fleet felt it, like a shared thought placed softly into the corner of their minds. You've heard us now, so we will wait for you. No voice, no sound, but a message just the same. And somehow, everyone knew it wasn't from a government, not a Terran leader, not even from a fleet of hidden ships. It was from Earth itself, from something beneath oceans, within the skies, spread across the stones of ancient ruins and the codes of Terran satellites. Something that existed not just on the surface, but deep within the idea of Earth. A presence, not a ruler, a guide. And then, slowly, one by one, Council ships began to power down their targeting systems, not because they were ordered, but because they no longer saw a reason to keep them online. The mission had ended, not with victory, not with defeat, but with understanding. Admiral Sales sent a final encrypted message to the Council's core world, far beyond the stars. It read, "Not challenge Earth, not because they will fight, but because they won't need to." That message was never broadcast to the public. But within high circles of the Council, the story spread. And over time, a new policy was formed, not in fear, not in shame, but in quiet admiration. Earth would no longer be approached with pressure or demands. Instead, it would be watched, learned from, respected. And, in hidden places, among scholars and explorers, Earth's orbit was no longer called a zone of silence. They called it something else now, a listening place. A place where those who spoke too much learned to hear. And where the stars themselves seemed to lean just a little closer, to listen to